how anyone could say it's anything other than a spring mirage to this point. We haven't seen him do anything in full pads.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him do anything when a defensive back can run through your back, which is something that they teach them not to do in OTAs. Look, here's what I'll say about him on a positive side, besides what you saw on tape in college at a lower level program, is that in the 3 weeks that we've seen him, we've only seen him once a week for the last 3 weeks because that's all we've been allowed to do.
Yep.
His opportunities have grown. He went from being with, the back end of the roster guys in the first time we saw him to getting some work with the second team the second time we saw him to getting some work with the quote-unquote first team the third time we saw him. Now, look, there were absences. As we know, Diggs hasn't really been here very much. Kendrick Bourne wasn't there this past week. Mac Hollins still has not been cleared to participate, has not dressed at all. He's been there but hasn't dressed. And Jalen Polk is also making his way back from shoulder surgery. So some of the opportunities, because there's not as many guys, but some of it is like, okay, what we've given him, he's shown he can handle, and we'll give him some more, and we'll see how it plays when they get into real competition, because it's still, no matter what anyone says, and you read a lot of it in the last 3 weeks, we haven't hit the real competition part.
Mike, I'm curious. I know OTAs, they probably don't look maybe too dissimilar to maybe what minicamp's going to look like, but minicamp, everyone's going to be there, so it'll be full participation. Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be out there on Monday, so I look forward to seeing you there. But dude, what does this minicamp represent for you? What are your big things that you want to see from this minicamp? Questions that you have that you think hopefully minicamp might answer?
Yeah, I think first and foremost for me, it starts with the quarterback, right? And, it's been sort of an uneven ride here for the times that we've gotten to see him. But are you continuing to make progress from the last time we saw you where, I know the stats, whatever, you can take the stats and throw them out the window too, but it looked better. He looked faster. He looked like he was playing faster. And I want to continue to see that. To me, that's really important. How quickly does he grasp the offense? Because it'd be a lot better if he grasped the offense in, say, early August as opposed to, late September, early October, which is kind of the case last year, even if he did have the good run at the end of training camp. So to me, do that and, you're well on your way to being a respectable football team. And then for me, the other parts of it is just how do they slot the receivers when they're all there? Again, not expecting Diggs to be a full go, not expecting Hollins to be a full go, but who's in line? Because we know that even though it's not the greatest competition in terms of top-level talent, there is competition for maybe 4 guys for 1 spot, 4 guys for 2 spots, depending on how you feel about Chisholm. So that's a part of it to me that's important. And then I guess lastly, just Christian Barmore, keep being out there. He looks good, he looks quick, he looks like he's in shape, maybe the best shape he's ever been in since he's been a Patriot. And no predicting, foretelling what the blood clot situation can be going forward, but having Christian Barmore be Christian Barmore would be huge for this team.
Mike, on that wide receiver competition point of what we want to see next week, who we only have limited data to work with to this point, but who would you imagine is on the outside looking in right now? And if you're fighting for those 1 or 2 spots, which guys profile out as that classic bottom of the depth chart wide receiver? Yeah,
I think that Javon Baker is on the outside looking in. I think that you could make the case that Jalen Polk's on the outside looking in, even if he was only, just a year ago, a second-round pick. Because, again, Elliott Wolf has loyalty to him, but this coaching staff doesn't. So, while I've liked the way he's been moving, he hasn't been moving against defenders. He's just been moving against air as he rehabs from the shoulder surgery. So those are 2 guys that, last year, second and the fourth, Baker's going to make people stand up out of wheelchairs. And now we could be in a situation where neither guy's on the team. And I would say 2 other names. There would be Booty, who obviously played a lot last year, but Mac Hollins is making the team unless there's something physically that he can't come back from. They paid him $4 million guaranteed, which isn't crazy, but he's on the roster. He's here for a reason. He's here to actually lead that room. So I can't imagine he's not on the roster. He's an X. Kyle Williams, the 3rd-round pick, they'd love him to be the starting X. So he's an X. Where does Booty fit? He's not a pure X. They had to play him last year out of desperation, but I don't know. I don't think it's easy for him. And then the last one is Pop Douglas, and Pop Douglas has the connection to Efton Chisholm. You're hearing Chisholm's name a lot from well-connected media people because there are people internally that like Efton Chisholm. Now, can he carry it over? As I said, when it matters, I don't know. But if he does, it could be a little bit duplicitous there, the two of them,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. There is a little bit of
overlap there. Yeah. Mike Giardi, Boston Sports Journal, joining us here on WEEI Afternoons. Mike, I got to ask you two questions about Stefon Diggs. First is the whole thing, that crap sheet, and we had a fight of whether he said he did pass the physical or will or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Has he passed his physical? Has some money been paid out? Is money due to him now? Where are we in Stefon Diggs in that situation?
So my read of the situation is that he has not been cleared medically, which means he has not passed his physical yet, which would mean that there is money that he needs to be paid, or he's supposed to be paid, that hasn't been paid yet because he hasn't gotten to that point yet. Now, look, like I said, we saw him last week, and he's moving pretty well for a guy that's 6-7 months removed from the ACL surgery. So I don't doubt that he's going to pass the physical, assuming that they want him to pass the physical.
And the second part of that question, is this now water under the bridge with Stefon Diggs because he's there and they made up whatever? And I need to combine that with, we have a correspondent named Stiz who's been covering the social media battle with Offset and Stefon Diggs, and sort of threats of violence from Offset because Stefon Diggs is messing with his kid and all that. Is that like adding to the pile of kind of, ooh, we don't care for this that we're involved with Stefon Diggs?
I would say that they came to an agreement that that the boat thing can't happen again. I don't think it was any coincidence that he was at OTAs and visible to all of us when he was last week. But I think it's a second strike. It's not a first strike. You know what I mean? I think it's like, hey, dude, we're willing to put this money on the table for you. Nobody else necessarily was. We still think you can be a really productive player. You'd be important to us, but like we can't be doing this, because again, the most important thing is good players, as Mike continues to say. But like, they have tried to work the culture, and I'm not sure that their culture is necessarily ready to take on someone if he's going to continue this sort of bent. Which maybe it's just part of who he is at this point.
I'm kind of fascinated about what the potential is for this defense. And no one's really talking about the defense, and rightfully so. More attention's been laid to the offense, Mike. But they got like 4 or 5 starters in free agency for the defense. I'm curious, just kind of what are your thoughts of what the potential might be for this defense? Clearly, they couldn't rush the passer. They were terrible against the run. Do you see the kind of the improvements they made via free agency really given this defense? I mean, what do you think their ceiling is for this year?
I think it's a pretty high ceiling. I think in fact, I think your best path to respectability, or in many people's, including you guys, a couple of you at least, 10, 11 wins is, if that's going to happen, then those guys got to be dogs. And I think there is the foundation to be that. Again, I keep going back to Barmore. You pay Milton Williams the money you paid him, and you think he continues on the same sort of track that he's been on in his career. And granted, some of the pass rush win weight, that stuff will come down a little bit because he's going to play about 30-40% more snaps than he's ever done in Philadelphia. But like, if he can continue to be that kind of player, and then you had a healthy, focused Barmore, then all of a sudden life is a lot easier for Keon White or Braden Swinson, the rookie from LSU, or maybe Harold Landry gets to, do his cleanup sacks again. Like, that can make life a lot easier because those two guys can command such attention and cause such havoc in the heart of that defense. Like, that's, to me, the fastest path for them being a good football team, is for that defense to be back to being in that top 10, sort of range, where they actually, when I say top 10 too, I mean, like, they're doing it against good teams, not the beat up against the bad quarterbacks and the bad teams. Do it against Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson too.
Mike, do you see defensive rookies that you anticipate pushing for starting reps on this group?
Well, I'll tell you, Woodson, the safety, the 4th round pick that was, generated some sort of, what are they doing here? It seems a little bit of a reach. He looks the part so far. And again, shorts, we're not there yet. But the thing that has stood out to me is that he seems to be where he's supposed to be, the right place. You know what I mean? Like, there hasn't been him scrambling to get into position, or like, no, he's where he's supposed to be, and he's making some plays on the ball, and like, he sort of looks the part. And there's a lot of internal buzz about just how smart a player he is and how tough a player he is. And like with Duggar still coming back from his ankle surgery, we haven't seen him yet. And, Peppers obviously is going to be in the middle of that defense, I would imagine. But Woodson gives them that potential of free safety that, quite frankly, if I'm thinking about Marcus Epps and I'm thinking about Jalen Hawkins, if Woodson can do it, I'd much rather play Woodson.
Mike, we play a little game here called More Likely on WEEI Afternoons.
Revolutionary. You'll never guess the rules.
It's either or. It's binary, so you got to pick between the two options. And one of our choices today was Drake Maye will either be a top 5 MVP candidate or he'll throw 25 interceptions. Which are you picking for 2025?
Oh, I'd say top 5 MVP candidate.
What?
Not that I would bet.
Homer Horn?
Money.
Mike. I'm with you, Mike. All right, let him go.
Over
Go ahead,
25
Mike.
interceptions.
Yeah, right.
25 interceptions is hideous. 25 interceptions is Jameis Winston before the LASIX and probably still after. Like, if he throws 25 interceptions, then we got this whole thing wrong. Or they got the whole thing wrong. Not me. I didn't make the pick. They did. But they got it wrong. or they're developing them wrong or something, because that would be...
I can't imagine.
That would be mind-boggling.
I can't imagine Josh letting him get to, 17, 18 interceptions, let alone 25.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's only
I
one a
said
game.
it when we talked. Yeah, but when we talked to him, whatever that was, 3 weeks ago, I mean, he was talking like it was Josh, and it was a different tone than he took last year when he talked about the turnovers, because every once in a while he'd say, "No, I can't do it," and then like in the same answer, or maybe like the next question, he'd be like, "Well, I mean, that's just who I am. I'm gonna make plays."
Yeah, he did.
And the last time we talked to him, he was like, "No, he didn't stray that way." Like you can tell Josh was in his ear, like, "Dude, you cannot be throwing a pick or two, fumbling once or twice a game. If you're going to do that, we're not going to win a lot of football games."
Mike, before we let you go, I got to throw a question out there from one of our Twitch chat peeps. Monty Mack has been aggressively attacking me because I had the audacity to bring up race in regards to Efton Chisholm. Do you believe that part of the narrative surrounding Efton Chisholm and his popularity is the fact that he is a white slot receiver?
I mean, come on. How is it not? We lived through Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, and Danny Amendola. When Austin Carr, do you remember Austin Carr from like 5 or 6 years ago?
Yep.
Austin Carr had a good OTAs, and then he had like a nice beginning of the training camp, and it was like, oh my God, they did it again. They found the next guy. Austin Carr didn't play here, had a couple good games in New Orleans, but like that was it. It was over. Like, so yeah, I'm sorry. There definitely has been, there are parts of the fan base that definitely latch on to that.
Thank you, Mike Giardi, for clearing that up and setting Monty Mack and others straight. It is what it is. Mike, I hope you have a good weekend. Get out there on the paddleboard. Ted, you know he's a paddleboarder?
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
It's
he's ripped,
gotta be outside, man. Gotta be outside. Ted, just trying to keep up with you, man.
Attaboy.
See you, Mike. Have a good weekend.
See you, bud.